Today, I'm talking with Tony Giordano, who grew to become a top real estate agent through his simple but rare approach to social media. He's a top luxury agent in Los Angeles, owner and founder of Opulent Agency, national speaker and trainer, published author of best-selling The Social Agent, and just named Top 100 Most Influential People by John Maxwell. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast is to share knowledge for realtors and raise awareness for Give Back Homes, where real estate professionals work together for social good. Jet Centers Aviation, Bentley Atlanta, Legends Global, thank you for your sponsorship. This is an interview with Tony Giordano in LA with the Keller Williams office in LA. And we're interviewing Tony today. We've got a special interest in him because he has developed literally an empire from launching his business from social media engagement. He's written a book called The Social Agent, and he is a national speaker to real estate agents all over the country and probably in other countries. So Tony, fill in the blanks a little bit there and tell us about your business and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I got into the business in 1998 as a mortgage broker. And then throughout my 10-year career, it was a very successful career. I was very young and the money came in very quickly and very easily just because of the fake housing market and how lenient financing was. And then in 2008, when it all came tumbling down, I tumbled down with it and I completely had to reinvent myself and figure out what I was going to do to dig out of the crash, because I literally went from making $1 million to less than $50,000 in GCI the following year.
And this was as a mortgage broker. Go ahead.
Yeah, as a mortgage broker. And then in 2009, I had just gotten so fed up with finance and that entire industry that I decided to switch to the sales side. But it wasn't going to be easy because I had to completely build an entirely new database again. And so I started just doing a lot of research on online marketing, internet research. And I knew that that's where the world was going, especially in real estate. And this is summer of 2009. So taking some classes and launching an extremely very well done website and taking some social networking classes. The gist of it, or the long story short, is I exploded in less than 6 months in high-end luxury real estate, getting leads left and right from Facebook, my website, LinkedIn, Twitter, understanding what you actually did in those social networks. And then that led to becoming a national speaker for Coldwell. And then in January of 2012, after writing my first book, I decided to launch my own brand as a boutique brand, but I did it underneath the KW umbrella of Keller Williams. And I've been doing that now for 4.5 years. And I'm a speaker and I'm a writer, but at the same time is now running the luxury real estate. And it was all powered by massive online exposure and online branding and online lead generation.
Wow. So it sounds like you did that. You started in 2009. And it sounds like you did that in a time when, and we're in a business where everybody talks about getting on the phone, asking for referrals, and you went in a completely different direction in that time by getting on social media and getting on the internet before it existed, but it was probably before it. Did anybody think you were crazy, or what did everybody have to say about that?
Well, great question. I still think people think I'm crazy. So a lot of people,
right?
Unfortunate. When I speak, I say this a lot on stage, is I say the number one problem with our industry in 2009 is still the number one problem with our industry today. And it's that we are being taught social media and online lead generation by techies, not by actual salespeople, who have captured business from it. So they're telling you to launch your Facebook. They're telling you to do Twitter. But then when you ask them, like, okay, great, you built it for me. This is awesome. You showed me what to do. Now, what do I say? And they're like, whatever real estate agents say.
Right.
And that is not the right way to lead generate online. The right way to lead generate online is being human. And instead of just building relationships with the 500 people that are in your database or that you actually know in your life, you go out and build a relationship with 10,000 people in the area you sell real estate in. And it's limitless at that point. And very few people still do it at the level that I teach, even still to this day.
So a question for me, when you talk about social media, we all think of social media as a computer and technology, and it's the same thing as going to a party. And I remember when I heard you speak, I was completely impressed beyond belief by you. I was at a convention, and it was okay until you came on stage, and thank God I didn't leave before I saw you, because it was literally over the top. But going, and it just really has changed my personal business. But going into that, a question I have for you is that when we engage with people, one-on-one's good, you can engage more. And even in social media, I find a lot of us are engaging, but when you're engaging, you're truly engaging in developing relationships with 10,000 people. What are your tips on how do you engage with 10,000 people? How do you get a sense of a relationship with those kind of numbers?
Well, I think that they feel they have a relationship with you more than you have a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. So you're constantly giving value. So real quick, online presence versus being present online. Mm-hmm. That's what I name a lot of my presentations. And the reason I call it that is 98% of real estate agents are present online. Exactly. Everybody has a Facebook. Everybody has a website. Everybody has a LinkedIn. But less than 1% of us have online presence, which is relevant, which is online presence is two things. It's giving people value every day, and it's making sure that your audience is growing in size every day. Mm-hmm. If you are doing those two things, you will explode. And to answer your question about the 10,000, so if I'm giving 10,000 people value every day, they actually feel like they have the relationship with me more than me with them, because I can't go down my newsfeed and look at 10,000 posts every day. No. And so as long as you give value, and when I say give value, a lot of people are like, oh, what kind of value? And I'm like, I'm not talking about your new listings that are open on Saturday. I'm talking that you posted a picture of your dog doing something funny, and you made 985 people laugh their butts off that day. The next day you said something heartfelt, and you touched the hearts and lives of 2,000 people. The next day, yes, you said something about real estate, but it was funny and it reminded everybody you're an agent. And then you just get back to being social again. It's people. Exactly. And I think people don't understand this is just where humans are today. All we did was move online. So building relationships with people online is 10 times more effective than any other form of lead generation there is.
And it's fun to hear you say that, because so many people would swear that's not true. It's still getting on the phone, and you have proven that that's not the case. And to kind of reiterate on that, it sounds like when you engage with people, you've got to do two things. And tell me, this is what I'm hearing. Everybody's working on competence, which people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and that they know how human you are, and that they feel that, going back to your point, that relationship with you. And that's what you're developing online.
Yeah. For anybody who's on the call, and anybody who's going to listen to this, at another time, if anybody's ever heard of TED Talks, there's a TED Talk presenter and an amazing speaker named Simon Sinek. And Simon Sinek says it best, and he has said it for years. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you show that side of you online, if you show 10,000 people what makes you wake up every morning and why you love what you do, and you come from passion, and you make sure that you grow your audience size every day, so you're not just doing it to the same 400 friends on Facebook that you've been doing it for 2 years to, you go out and get another 4,000 friends. It is just shocking how quickly you will see that business come in. And we're not just talking about Facebook, we're talking about everything. So, and
Simon Sinek, spell that for us so that we can look that up on TED Talks.
Yeah, it's how great leaders inspire is the name of his YouTube video. And he says how Apple, the Smart Brothers, or not the Smart Brothers, the Wright Brothers, sorry. the Wright brothers, the Apple, Southwest, JetBlue, Martin Luther King, they all came from a place of passion in their marketing. They all come from a place of deep belief. And when people see why you do what you do, that's what attracts people.
So
but you can't just do it you can't do it to the same amount of people in your life. You have to go out there and lead gen. And so I want to make sure I say something clear is every form of lead gen works. So I do believe that cold calling works. I do believe that door knocking works. But does it work at the level it did 15 years ago? No way. Absolutely not. The ROI has gone way down because people aren't at home to answer the door anymore. People don't have hardline phones at their house. Millennials don't answer their cell phones who are under the age of 35 years old if they don't identify the phone number. So online lead generation makes everything warm.
Exactly.
And cold calling doesn't even need to exist anymore as long as you know how to do that research, which is why I get so passionate to go and speak all over the country and teach agents how simple this is.
Well, another question when you talk about deep belief, I think, how would you define your deep belief, and what is your deep belief in your business and that you put out on social media?
You mean my passion?
Yes.
Well, I think that it's just every situation is different. My passion of what just wakes me up to teach and just sell real estate, I think it's both. I want to teach my competitors how to do this because I just love teaching. But my clients have always said that is we chose you because you taught us in the listing presentation. You actually educated on stuff we had no clue about.
Wow.
And we see it in you. Like the other listing presentations were 60 minutes and yours was 3 hours, not because you chose to be 3 hours. It's because we kept wanting to ask you questions and we learned stuff for our businesses. We learned how to grow our private practice business. We now know that you know how to market property better than anybody else we've spoken to internationally and nationally. So education has always been my thing, is the more you teach people and give them value, you will get the business every single time.
And that's huge. That's huge. So I'm going to take a little bit of a turn here and ask you, I think we all learned so much from our failures in this business. What was your biggest mistake, or what has been your biggest failure as a real estate agent? And how have you overcome it?
As a real estate agent, I think as a business person, I'd rather answer the question.
Okay.
Not necessarily as an agent, but in everything business. My biggest failure, I think, was I made a decision. Actually, I've done it a couple times, but I've learned from it since. But a few years ago, I had made decisions based on instant gratification rather than delayed gratification. And I still fight with that even still to this day sometimes. And an example of that is I chose something that was going to gratify me instantly rather than just being patient and knowing that if I just stuck it out, it could have been 10 times bigger. But then I'm also a big believer that because I did that, other doors open, so I can't regret anything. So I usually don't think of anything like, oh, if I could go back in time, I'd redo that. I'm not a believer in it. I actually just think as long as you learn from your failures, then you'll constantly be growing. But I do
our
think
failures
that,
we learn from. Yeah, and
like if a listing wants to like take their house off the market, I do struggle sometimes with not. I'm more focused on selling their house at that moment and not winning them over in a year when they finally do decide to relist it again.
Exactly.
And so it's my thing. I want to help people so bad that sometimes I get overly passionate with my own clients sometimes.
I can relate to that. I'm glad to know I'm not the only one. So do you have a story for us that you can share of some big thing that happened in your business that you thought, wow, I can't believe this has happened, as far as a mistake or something that happened to you that felt like a failure? And And where did you take your business from that? Because everybody that's successful has had so many failures, and you have to overcome those and I think a big message to me to a lot of people who look at this business and getting in it is they're afraid of failure. Well, if you don't have a failure, if you don't hit a failure, you can't be successful without failure. You can't learn without it. So what's a story you might have that you could share with us like that?
Well, I love the question. I don't know if I'm trying to think of an actual situation or just the concept of what failure is to me is, I was with a group of people and we were driving in a car and I answered my phone and it was my son and I was out of town and I couldn't go to his soccer games that day. Mm-hmm. And my son was on speaker and I told everybody to be quiet and he said, "Hey, son, hey, Dad." And I said, "Oh, you sound down. How are your games?" And he goes, "We lost both games." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I go, "Wow, that's not like you." He goes, "I know." He goes, "We lost both games and I actually didn't make 1 point." And he was just completely down about the whole thing. And he said, and I said, "What do you think caused it?" And blah, blah, blah. He's like, I don't know. Maybe they were just better than me. He goes, "But am I a failure?" And everybody's like listening and they're like touching their hearts like, oh, like his poor little son. And I actually, in front of all of them while driving, said, "I hope you are, son."
Exactly.
And they just looked at me like, "What?" And he goes, "What do you mean, Dad?" And I go, "It means you tried." Yeah. I go, "The question is, are you going to learn from it? That's the only thing." I go, "So what do you think is the difference between, what do you think stands between failure and success?" And then I said, "Quitting." So you fail as many times as you want, but don't you ever quit.
That's great.
And that's the difference is, so I don't quit. I do not quit in real estate. I don't care how many times I fail. I will learn from it. I will figure out how to beat my competition every single time. And it's just, that's, I guess, my thing is, and if I fail a customer, like if I fail a client, I wasn't able to achieve what they wanted, I'm going to learn from it and it's never going to happen again.
Exactly. I love that. That's great. So we're going to take a break real quick.
But you can't let it take your willpower. You can let it drain your willpower, but the next day when that willpower is back up, you got to get back out there. You can sit and mope for a day at the most, but then it's time to get back at it.
Exactly. I love that. And in every failure, it's what did I learn from this? What can I do better? And if I hadn't had it, sometimes it could be you get so close in this business and somebody decides to pull a listing or something just doesn't quite go right. And it's what did I learn from this? What am I going to do better next time? How am I going to see this coming? And how am I going to better serve my client? Well, here's a question. So Tony, I'm going to ask you this, even though you've indicated pretty clearly that your best source of business is social media. But once you win those leads and you get that business in social media, how do you best win that client and get the listing agreement signed or get that exclusive buyer agreement signed with the client?
You have absolutely amazing questions. Like you ask them perfect. You ask them perfectly because I love your question. So it's funny to me how many people don't do the basics of our job to go and which leads to extraordinary results. And a lot of things that people think are hard are actually not. And so on stage, I always say, what do you think the easiest thing to do in our business is? What do you think is the easiest thing to do as a real estate agent? Can
I answer?
And
see if I get it right.
It's shocking. It's shocking how many people, like all the things that I hear all the time. It doesn't matter if I'm in front of 20,000 people or 20 people. I hear the same things. Like it's showing a property. It's sitting in open house. It's all these things. And I go, and so, but the answer is getting a lead.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
It literally is the easiest thing is lead generation.
They're everywhere. Everywhere. And people pay so much money for leads and they're everywhere and they're free.
The most difficult thing is converting it.
Exactly.
That takes art. That takes mastery. And so what I do is I have follow-up systems. And it's like when I hear agents say something like, oh, Zillow leads are crap. I go, if I hear another agent tell me Zillow leads are crap, I will flip out. Zillow leads, online leads, any leads are not crap. You want to know what crap is your follow-up system. That's what's
Love
crap.
it. Yep.
Because on average, a buyer is looking to buy a home for 9 months. Their educational phase on average in the United States of America is 9 months long.
Mm-hmm.
And they called you at the very beginning of that educational phase when they were still wishy-washy, or they didn't show up for a showing appointment. And then you said, oh, these people aren't serious because they were still 6 months from buying. You stopped following up, and that's why you didn't get that deal. That's why you didn't convert that lead. So I take follow-up extremely serious. I also use leverage like Facebook and LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So I make sure I add them as a friend so that Facebook can do some of the work for me and building the relationship with them.
Exactly.
So that they see me every day. So it's getting a lead though, piece of cake. Converting it, I just make sure I stay on top of them and I continue nurturing that relationship. And then I also have some secrets and little tricks that, you know, have worked for me. And I coach a lot of agents too. So I coach them on the techniques that I teach.
Would you share any of those with us?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you,
what are your 3 best techniques or your 1 best?
3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, definitely website and taking it very seriously and drawing traffic back to your website through social networks. That's number 1. You have to have online presence, period. Number 2 is marketing. You have to know how to market yourself or no one will ever trust you to market their home.
Exactly.
And people do their research now, especially listings. Sellers do their research. They do not need to wait for you to pull up in front of their house in your shiny Mercedes to know if you've sold property or not. They're going to research you up and down to make sure that you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
And so I'm a big believer in marketing, and very few agents market themselves. And I always say, who cares how good of an agent you are if no one knows you exist? Well,
it's funny. Eric is sitting here with us today. Eric Holtzclaw, who hosts the radio show that I mentor on once a month. And he always, to your point, says, when someone hires you, they have made the decision before they meet you most of the time. So if you can establish the presence that you've established by the time they meet you, if you've marketed yourself properly, you've made the decision for them or put them in a position so that they can. Everybody wants a good agent. They want to hire someone good, but you've got to show them you're good before everybody else does.
Yep. And then I would say number 3 would be systems. And the 2 systems I'll say the 3 things that work for me better than anything. So number 1 was online presence, website, social networks. Number 2 was marketing. Number 3 is systems. I'll give you 3 of the systems that are massive for me. The first one is offers.com. Offers without the E. Offers without the E.
OFRS.com.
OFFRS.com. They were featured in Inman News today. They just wrote an article on offers today and on the Inman Twitter account and Inman's website. Offers is a predictive analytic. They are a predictive analytic company who tell you who's most likely to sell their home in the next 12 months in the territory that you purchase from Offers. And these guys are scary. I mean, when I say scary, they are scary. They know that the wife is pregnant based on her clicking on websites that have to do with maternity. It's a 2-bedroom condo.
Wow.
They're moving this year.
Okay.
There's been a divorce. There's been a death in the family. Like, it's shocking what they do. And so offers.com has a promo code that give agents discounts, and I'll give it to you today.
Great.
But
please do. Okay.
You know, make sure that they don't give it. You know, they don't want to give it away to their competitors because you want to lock in your territory before anybody else does. But their promo code for a discount is called Agent 007, like James Bond. But it's Agent 007 gets you a discount with Offers. The system number 2 is Happy Grasshopper. Happy Grasshopper creates conversations and customly writes content to my database that sounds like I wrote it. And it is leverage that I cannot put a price on. And to give you an example of what I mean, let's say that you use Top Producer as your CRM.
Mm-hmm.
They go into your Top Producer. They integrate with any CRM, and they write content to your database as if you sent an authentic email to just that person. And it sounds amazing. It's brilliant content.
So they basically do email marketing, but it looks like you're emailing them one-on-one.
It looks like they're emailing them one-on-one, but it's the content. It's hard to explain what these guys do. So they're about $99 a month. They have a promo code called HG Agent, HG for Happy Grasshopper, HG Agent, that gets you, I think, like 15% off or something, their monthly fee. And I can't stress to you enough what this content creates more conversations for me every month with my database.
Wow.
It's amazing.
I can't wait to hear what the third system is.
The third is, I have always said I'm against hiring social companies to post on your behalf until a company who was founded by a top real estate agent, and he built it, and he was a lot like me. He spoke on social media and how social media works. So he decided to become the first person who actually built a company that will post on your Twitter and your Facebook for you. And it's amazing area-specific content. It is not like these stupid things like Outbound and other companies do where it's just dumb content. Mm-hmm. And the name of his company is called cityblast.com.
Great.
Cityblast.com. They're the only companies I've ever seen do what they do very well are $1,500 a month. Mm-hmm. Or you have to hire somebody on your team to do really great content on your behalf. And now you're paying somebody a salary. These guys have figured out a way to build a system to do it for $99 a month.
Wow. That's amazing.
And their promo code is Agent Blast. And Agent Blast, I think, gets you also a 15% discount. And then, so that was online presence, social networks on your website must be in place. Marketing number 2. 3 are those systems that help our conversion. And number 4 is my most deadly one.
Oh, wow.
Is I research like crazy. And it sets me above my competition or all the agents who I coach. It sets them above their competition so quickly. Because what did I say about conversion? It's my sellers are always saying, you teach us. Exactly. You educate us. You taught us stuff. So exactly. I'll give you an example. I just expanded the Opulent Agency, my brand. I just expanded into Chicago. And there was a listing there on the market for 2 years. It wasn't selling. An agent there who became my partner agent, who's going to be my president of Opulent Agency in Chicago. We got that $5 million listing. I got on the phone with the sellers. She was in their living room. I did the listing presentation, and the sellers were like, okay, so, obviously you know how to market property really good. We want China. I go, why do you guys keep saying you want me to market your property to China?
Right.
And they're like, because all the agents said China, and we know it's China and China. I go, China is not the number one country purchasing Chicago. I go, they're the number one country purchasing the United States in general on an average. But every area is different. And unlike other agents, I actually do my research. And China's not even in the top 5 for Chicago. I go, they're like, well, who is? And I go, Norway is actually your number one country. Canada is number 2. Singapore is number 3. That's who we need to target. And they were like, can you please send me the article? And how did you get this article? And I go, something called Google.
I love
and
it.
I actually take the time to research it. So then we did a massive targeting campaign to select countries. This house went into escrow 2.5 weeks ago. It closes in about 2 weeks.
What a great
for
story.
Almost close to full price. And the other research I do is anytime I know the agent who I'm going up against, I research everything about them, their YouTube channels, their average view count.
Exactly.
Their average view count on their videos, their average likes and comments, how many people see their stuff, what their website looks like. And if anybody, in conclusion to my 4 strategies, if anybody has ever seen the movie 8 Mile with the famous rapper Eminem.
I have not, but I'm going to see it now.
At the very end of the movie, there's something that rappers did back then called battle, and they battle each other and they make fun of each other. And the technique that I've done is I always tell people I Eminem them. And what I do is at the very end, in order for him to win, he ended up saying everything about himself that he knew the other guy was going to say.
Yeah.
So when he handed him the mic, the other guy couldn't make fun of him because he had just made fun of himself for 2 minutes straight. And so what I do is I tell them everything I already know the other agent is going to say. You know, the other agent's going to say that they've sold more than anybody else. The other agent is going to say this. Based on their YouTube channel, he's going to show you these videos. You need to ask these questions. I never talk bad about another agent. I educate them. That's all I do.
So
I say, look at their online presence and look at mine. Who do you actually think can put your house in front of more people?
So here's a question for you. The saying goes in the assumption in our business is you want to be the last agent to be interviewed, but it sounds like the way you interview, if you want to be the first agent, is that right?
Yep. And I'm very glad you brought that up. Gosh, Jere, I have to say you're an amazing interview host because
well, thank you.
I actually prefer to be first. And I'm surprised when people say,
I've heard say that. Mm-hmm.
I want to be last. And I go, why do you want to be last? And they're like, because I want to take it home. I want to bring it home. I go, how many appointments do you think you've missed because they ended up just choosing the second agent and you were number 4 and you never even got your interview?
Which does happen.
Like that happens. I want to go in number 1.
Well, when they meet you, they probably cancel the other appointments. And when you're the number 1, because you do such a good job.
Not just that. I would say it's 50-50. I get them to sign, even though they were planning on interviewing, I get them to sign half the time and they end up not even doing the second interview. Or they go, well, we're still planning on interviewing. Thank you so much, Tony. We're going to interview 2 more agents. And then they call me after the second one and say, the second one didn't even come close. We're not wasting our time with the third. So it's 50-50. But the scripts that I've created and the scripts that I teach my mentees who I coach, these scripts have taken me a long time to develop. And when you send this email to a seller with my language of sales, there's just nothing they can say besides, okay, like.
And this is something that you've written yourself over time?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I constantly tweak it, but you know, I have pre-listing I call them pre-listing enticement emails. I entice the seller to want more. And again, that goes back to Simon Sinek, coming from passion, using words like, I believe when I come to your house next week, you will see that it was the most invaluable 60 minutes with a real estate agent you've ever had. I believe when I show you this technique to globally market your property, you are going to see the value in me over other agents. Like it's very purposeful and it just entices them. So I have them all in my phone. Anytime somebody says, hey, Tony, can you send me an email? I'm going to introduce you to the seller. I just go in my memo pad on my phone. I could be driving in my car. I pull over. I go in my memo pad. It's already written out. I tweak the names. I tweak the street names. And then I send it to the seller and they're like, can you come over tonight?
Wow, that's great. So you said I tweet the name, I tweet the street names. What are you talking about with that? Meaning
I have all my pre-listing emails in my phone.
Okay. No, I knew that. I got that part. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have to retype it every time.
I got it.
And then I just go in and say, hi, Sally, instead of hi, Jim. I change the name.
Oh, yeah. I see. I thought you meant tweet like social media, like tweet them. You meant I tweak, like I just adjust the name. I thought, well, what is he tweeting?
Sorry.
No, I got it.
I adjust my emails.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
So 2 more things. I want to ask you I want to ask you one more question. We've got like 7 minutes and Eric would argue we have 3. We have 0 minutes. Okay, so we're going to close out. Real quick, if you can give it to us in 1 or 2 sentences before I close out, what is your biggest success and that you're most proud of, or your biggest accomplishment in business or as a real estate agent?
He has been my idol for years. He's pushed me to become a motivational speaker, as well as just a speaker of skill enhancement and constantly teaching people how to better their lives, change lives for the better. And when you help other people to become successful, it automatically leads to your success. So the number one greatest achievement I feel out of all the things that I've been awarded just happened 3 months ago. And I was awarded John Maxwell World Top 100 Leader for 2016. So out of the thousands of nominees, there's a top 100 that John Maxwell says these are the top 100 leaders in the globe. Well, I literally just got chills when you told me that. Yeah, so it was awesome. I got a phone call from them, and I had to go through this whole process, like all the nominees had to go to, and then of course it goes to a top 30 and then even a top 1. But just to have been noticed and been acknowledged in the top 100 was just huge for me, because I love to lead and I love to teach, and that's just no question. It's no surprise, but that is really amazing, and you've really made an impression on my life and my business. And oh, thank you. Absolutely. And I want to close out and just say thank you so much for coming. And as we close out, real quick, just give us your future plans in another couple of sentences, and then go ahead and give us your future plans in about one sentence or 2. My future plans are multiple streams of income to have passive wealth and early retirement. And that will pertain to owning franchises and expanding my brand to luxury markets to maybe a dozen nationally. And then continuing to just lead thousands and speak. And when people say, do you have an actual goal set in mind? My goal is always growth. As long as I'm growing year after year, everything will automatically happen. So do I have set milestones with numbers attached to it and dates? No, it's just constant growth. If every year I can say I grew more than the year before on all these levels, then I'm doing exactly what I want. And I would say and then of course, go ahead. Of course I have the big goal pushing me to do that. And my big why is, every morning waking up, wondering who can I show how to do this? Not just tell people how to do it, but actually show them how to do it. I love that. So and I would say we're running out of time, but I would say that you are obviously a very passionate person and you want to grow as a person. And I think growing in your business is what grows you as a person, and what grows you as a person is what grows your business. Yeah. And hands down. What is the one thing that you would hope that listeners take away from this interview? If you because we've covered a lot. Adaptability. And don't be comfortable in your business. Don't be complacent in your business. Constantly try to figure out ways that you need to adapt and innovate. Because the day you stop innovating is the day that's the beginning of the end. You constantly have to adapt to new forms of technology, communication systems, in order to compete at the level that we're all competing at. Otherwise, we're in the bottom 80% and do a deal here and there, and it's just not good enough for me. You're either growing or you're dying. You're either going up or you're going down. And it's funny, Eric sitting with here. I've hired Eric to help me take my business to the next level, and that's a big conversation we had. He said, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Because it's one or two. I'm either going to keep growing or it's going nowhere. That's not where I want to be." Exactly. I mean, it's chapter 5 in my first book, The Social Agent. Chapter 5 is called Adaptability. We're going to close out on that. One of 2 things as we close out. What are the books that you've written? Because I've read The Social Agent, but what are the other ones? And give us your contact information and where to find you. Sure. You can follow me on Twitter Tony _Giordano. So Twitter is Tony_Giordano, or Instagram is Tony_Giordano as well. And my website for speaking is Giordano.global. And my real estate website is theopulentagency.com. And the first book I wrote was The Social Agent, which became a bestseller, surprisingly. I was not expecting that. On the second edition of The Social Agent, The Birth of Your Digital Identity, is coming out in the next 60 to 90 days. And then I'm writing another book right now called Shift Happens.
I've heard about this one.
Because everybody's talking about the shift, and there are books that talk about real estate shifts. Gary's book is one of the most amazing, Gary Keller's, which is Shift. That's the name of it. Mm-hmm. But mine is more on a, I guess, more of a shift happens. And
I love the name, by the way.
Why does it affect some people and why doesn't it affect others? And my whole thing, because people are constantly, they're all asking about it. The shift, the shift, the shift. What are you doing to prepare for the shift? Mm-hmm. And I just tell people, I'm working.
I love that answer. All. You're working.
Like, all I'm doing is working. Like, the shift isn't going to affect any people who work. A hunter, a lion doesn't change its course on its prey because it stepped into a shift or stepped in shift, if you know where I'm going with that. Mm-hmm. So just because we're in a shift, it's not going to change my course on the hunt. And what's funny is the people who actually are affected by shifts, mostly usually in the bottom 80%, that means we just get their business now.
Exactly.
So as long as you're a lead generator and you work every day and you ask 25 people every day, do you know anybody looking to buy or sell real estate? It's impossible to not continue growing in GCI every year.
Keep working, keep growing, keep business developing, and keep your presence. And the stronger that gets, when the market comes down, that can play to your advantage so that you're the more powerful, getting an even greater share of the market.
Exactly.
Well, that is great advice, Tony. Thank you so much for your interview today. It was an honor. I can't reiterate enough what you've done for my business, and this interview is just one more amazing part of it, and I really appreciate you.